Welcome to PK BookSmarts, where we explore the eerie and unsettling corners of reality. Tonight, I'm going to take you on a journey through one of the most terrifying experiences of my life, a night when my small town of Aiken, South Carolina, was plunged into chaos during an emergency broadcast test. This is what happened to my town during the emergency broadcast test. Prepare yourselves for a tale of horror, where the familiar becomes the sinister and where survival is the only thing that matters. It was a dark, stormy night in Aiken, South Carolina, the kind that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. The rain was coming down in sheets, and lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the otherwise pitch-black streets. The relentless storm had transformed the usually quiet town into a canvas of shadows and transient light. Each flash of lightning revealed a street momentarily brought to life, only to be swallowed by darkness again. Thunder rumbled consistently, like an ominous drumming in the background, heightening the sense of impending doom. I was at home with my best friend Hank, trying to pass the time by watching some old horror movies. We huddled under blankets, a bowl of popcorn between us, as the storm raged outside. The flickering candlelight added to the eerie ambience of the room, casting dancing shadows on the walls that seemed to mimic the ghostly figures on the screen. Occasionally, the power would flicker, making the tension in the room almost palpable. We chuckled nervously every time it happened, but in the back of our minds, we couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Suddenly, our movie was interrupted by an unsettling emergency broadcast test. The screen went black, and a high-pitched tone filled the room, making us both jump. It was so loud that it drowned out the sound of the storm for a moment, leaving us in an eerie silence once it ended. The usual message followed: "This is a test of the emergency broadcast system. This is only a test." We had heard it 1,000 times before, but this time it lingered longer than usual, and something felt off. The screen remained black, and the static hiss of an empty broadcast filled the room. Hank and I exchanged uneasy glances, the flickering candlelight reflecting our growing discomfort. Seconds stretched into minutes as we waited for the message to end. The house seemed unusually quiet, the storm outside a mere whisper compared to the tension inside. Each second felt like an eternity, and the longer the screen stayed black, the tighter the knot in my stomach grew. The high-pitched tone had stopped, but the silence that replaced it was even more unnerving. Hank tried to make a joke to lighten the mood, but it fell flat. Neither of us could ignore the creeping dread that something was terribly wrong. Just as the broadcast ended, we heard a loud crash outside. We rushed to the window and saw that a car had skidded off the road and slammed into a tree right in front of my house. Without thinking, we grabbed our jackets and ran outside to help. What we saw next was beyond comprehension. The driver and passengers of the car were crawling out, but instead of helping each other, they were attacking one another with an animalistic ferocity. Blood sprayed across the wet pavement as they clawed and bit at each other like rabid animals. Hank shouted at them to stop, but it was as if they couldn't hear us. It was then that we realized something was very wrong. This wasn't just an accident, this was something far more sinister. We decided to try and help them anyway, hoping that maybe we could snap them out of whatever madness had taken hold. But as we approached, one of them turned on us with a crazed look in his eyes. We backed away slowly, our hearts pounding in our chests. There was a palpable sense of danger in the air, and the intensity of the situation made every second feel like an eternity. As we made our way down the street, we encountered more townsfolk who were also behaving violently. It was like the entire town had lost its mind. People were fighting in the streets, smashing windows, and screaming at the top of their lungs. The scene around us was chaotic, filled with sounds of glass breaking and frenzied shouting, creating a cacophony of terror. The air was thick with tension and fear, making it hard to breathe normally. The eerie silence and darkness that had fallen over the town only added to our growing sense of dread. The only sound was the rain pattering against the pavement, and the occasional distant scream. The wet ground reflected the dim streetlights, casting ghostly shadows that seemed to dance in the periphery of our vision. Every corner we turned held a potential threat, and every noise made us jump. The feeling of isolation was overwhelming. It was as though we had been transported into a nightmare from which there was no escape. The familiar streets now appeared foreign and sinister, changing the very essence of the town we once knew. Desperate to find safety, we moved from one location to another, each place seeming more dangerous than the last. At one point, we narrowly escaped an attack from a group of people who had cornered us in an alleyway. We managed to fight them off and ran as fast as we could. The fear was palpable, consuming every inch of our beings as we bolted through the dimly lit streets. Every shadow seemed menacing, every flicker of movement a potential threat. Sweat dripped down our foreheads, hearts pounding like drums in a relentless march toward the unknown. We could hear the chaos in the distance, screams, shouts, and the sound of breaking glass. It felt like the whole world was collapsing around us, and there was no sanctuary in sight. Our fear and confusion grew with each passing moment. What was happening to our town? Why were people acting like this? We were haunted by the questions that had no immediate answers. It felt like we had been thrust into a nightmare, where the familiar had turned foreign and hostile. The places we once felt secure now harbored danger at every turn, and the realization struck deep, carving a path of dread through our minds. We needed answers, but more importantly, we needed to survive. The urgency of our plight fueled our exhaustion, driving us forward despite the overwhelming fatigue. Our legs ached, lungs burned, but stopping was not an option. Every pause, every moment of hesitation could be our last. The primal instinct to survive overshadowed everything else, pushing us to the brink of our limits. We clung to each other, seeking solace in our shared fear, holding fast to the hope that somewhere, somehow, there was a safe haven waiting for us. After what felt like hours of running and hiding, we decided to take shelter in the local library. It was one of the few places that seemed secure enough to hold up for a while. We barricaded ourselves inside using whatever furniture we could find. The shelves, chairs, and tables became our makeshift fortress, creating a semblance of safety against the unknown threats outside. For a moment, there was a feeling of temporary relief mixed with lingering fear. The library was dark and quiet, save for the occasional creak of wood settling or distant thunder rumbling outside. Each sound made us jumpy, the quiet amplifying our anxiety. The heavy darkness of the room contrasted sharply with the faint glimmers of hope we had as we sat in silence, each lost in our thoughts and trying to process the day's events. Some of us huddled together for warmth and comfort, while others roamed aimlessly, trying to make sense of the titles on the dusty bookshelves. Stories of fantasy and fiction suddenly felt much closer to our reality. While searching for supplies amid the shadowy aisles, Hank stumbled upon an old radio tucked away in a storage room. Miraculously, it still worked, an odd beacon of connectivity in our isolated world. We huddled around it as Hank fiddled with the knobs, the static-filled airwaves offering a glimmer of hope. Finally, we tuned it until we found a station with some faint conversation, the voices crackling through, barely discernible but enough to hold our attention. The snippets of conversation we heard suggested a larger conspiracy or control system in place. Words like isolation, quarantine, and jamming signals floated through the static-filled airwaves, sending chills down our spines. Our hearts sank, and our horror deepened as we realized that our town had been isolated and cut off from any outside help. The sense of abandonment was almost palpable, a heavy weight pressing down on our already frazzled nerves. We were on our own in this nightmare, left to fend for ourselves amid the encroaching darkness. Each word from the radio seemed to paint a grimmer picture, suggesting that this wasn't a random occurrence but a deliberate act, adding layers to our already growing fears. Panic set in as we absorbed the implications, grappling with the harsh reality that escape and rescue were not options. The knowledge that we might be part of a larger, more sinister plan left us in a state of disbelief and terror. Desperate measures, formulating a plan, we huddled together and discussed what to do next, weighing our limited options. Should we try to make a run for it or stay put? Every choice seemed fraught with danger. Fear and desperation clawed at us as we tried to come up with a survival plan. Our minds raced with thoughts of escape routes and potential safe havens. The uncertainty of our situation gnawed at us, making every second feel like an eternity. The room was thick with tension, every creak and groan of the building amplified in the silence. Each of us shared our thoughts, analyzing every possible route, every conceivable outcome. Despite everything, there was a steely determination within us both to find a way out or at least understand what was happening. The sense of responsibility weighed heavily on our shoulders. We couldn't afford to make a mistake. The gravity of our predicament demanded perfect decisions. As we reviewed our options, each plan seemed to have its own set of insurmountable risks. Still, the more we talked, the more we felt a strange kind of solidarity, a shared resolve that fortified our spirits, if only a little. With heavy hearts but resolute minds, we gathered whatever supplies we could find, food from vending machines, makeshift weapons from broken furniture, and prepared for whatever came next. The process of scavenging felt like an act of defiance against our dire circumstances, a small way to reclaim some semblance of control. As we searched each room meticulously, every item we deemed useful took on a new significance. A half-eaten bag of chips, a bent metal chair leg, even a bottle of water, all these items became lifelines in our desperate bid for survival. The tension was palpable as strange noises echoed from outside, shuffling footsteps, distant growls, eerie whispers carried on the wind. Each sound heightened our awareness, making us hyper-vigilant to every rustle and anomaly in our surroundings. Our senses were on high alert, adrenaline allowing us to function beyond our normal capacities. We exchanged knowing glances, our resolve silently communicated through intense, determined eyes. In those final moments before dawn broke through storm clouds overhead, if indeed dawn would ever come again, I decided to post our story on Reddit, hoping against hope that someone out there might have answers or be able to offer help before it's too late. My fingers trembled as I typed, the glow of the screen a small beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. Every character I entered felt like sending a flare into the night, a desperate plea for salvation. Reflecting on this harrowing experience has left me shaken beyond words, scars both physical, bruises still tender, and emotional, nightmares haunt even waking hours. Every time I close my eyes, I am transported back to those moments of confusion and fear. The noise, the shadows, the inexplicable occurrences, it all replays in my mind endlessly, like a tape stuck on loop. The once familiar and comforting surroundings of my town now seem cloaked in an eerie ambience, forever altered by that night. Lingering questions plague my thoughts: what caused this event? Could it happen again elsewhere, or worse yet, spread beyond borders into neighboring towns, cities, or even states? Each passing day brings with it a gnawing uncertainty. The lack of clear answers only adds to the unease, making it hard to move forward and leave this incident in the past. The authorities remain as perplexed as we are, their reassurances doing little to quell the growing unease that seems to grip the community. As I sit here typing these final words, rain still pouring outside, I can't shake the feeling of unease about the future. Will anyone ever truly know what transpired here tonight? Or will this mystery remain unsolved forevermore? The questions are endless, and yet the silence in return is deafening. Each raindrop that hits my window is a stark reminder of the unknown that still lingers, a testament to the bizarre and otherworldly events that transpired. Stay safe, everyone, and keep your eyes open, for you never know when your own small town might become center stage for the next unsettling chapter. Let this be a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most mundane places can be thrust into the heart of inexplicable horrors. Be vigilant, stay prepared, and, most importantly, hold your loved ones close, for we never truly know when normalcy might be ripped away from us, plunging our lives into chaos. If this story left you on edge and questioning the world around you, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below, and follow us on all social platforms for more tales that will keep you up at night. Stay vigilant, and remember, sometimes, the most ordinary places hide the darkest secrets.